"Give my wife to whoever defeats me," said the Apache leader. "The cowboy steps out in the end." The sun rose slowly over the wide-open plains, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink. The air was crisp, and a gentle wind carried the scent of dry grass and distant pine forests. In the quiet of the morning, a lone figure appeared on the horizon, a cowboy riding steadily, his hat pulled low over his eyes, his boots stirring up small clouds of dust with each step of his horse. He moved with purpose, but there was also a calmness in him, as if he had learned to let the world unfold before he acted. This was a man who had walked through hardship and danger, and yet he carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew attention even from afar. He rode toward a small frontier town nestled near the edge of a wide river. The town was made of wooden buildings, weathered by wind and sun, with a few wagons parked along the dirt street. People moved about their daily routines, tending to chores, mending fences, and trading goods. But even in this ordinary scene, a sense of tension lingered, like a quiet drumbeat that no one dared ignore. The townspeople whispered about a challenge that had stirred the land, a test unlike any other. A challenge set by the Apache leader, a man known far and wide for his courage, his skill in battle, and his fierce pride. The Apache leader had made a strange and shocking declaration. Standing before his people, he had said words that made many hearts skip a beat. "Give my wife to whoever defeats me." The words were carried by messengers and travelers, spreading quickly across the plains, reaching the ears of settlers, cowboys, and wanderers alike. To some the statement sounded harsh, almost cruel. To others it was a test of strength and courage, a tradition rooted in pride and honor. But to those who knew the land, the story was more than just a challenge. It was a story of human lives caught in the currents of pride, love, and choice. The cowboy listened to these whispers as he tied his horse near the town square. He could feel the weight of the challenge, not as a contest of violence, but as a test of spirit and understanding. He had seen many battles, many contests of skill, but something about this one felt different. It was not just about winning or losing. It was about the lives of people, about respect, and about the choices that define a person's character. He walked slowly through the dusty streets, taking in the expressions of the people around him. Some were nervous, some curious, and some hopeful. They watched him, wondering what a lone traveler could do in the face of such a powerful leader. As he passed a small general store, a group of townsfolk approached him cautiously. "You've heard the news, stranger?" one of them asked, a young man with sunburned cheeks and wary eyes. "The Apache leader has declared it. Whoever can defeat him takes his wife. But no one has tried. He is strong, very strong." The cowboy nodded, his eyes calm but attentive. "I've heard," he said simply. There was no arrogance in his tone, only a quiet understanding. The townsfolk looked at each other, uncertain how to read him. He was not like the others who sought glory or danger for fun. There was a weight to his words, a sense that he had faced trials before and knew the cost of pride and violence. He spent the day in the town, observing from a distance as preparations for the challenge began. The Apache leader's camp was set near a rocky outcrop by the river, a place both beautiful and dangerous. Horses grazed nearby, and warriors moved with precision and alertness, readying for whatever might come. The air carried a mixture of fear and respect. People knew the leader's reputation. He was not a man to underestimate, yet the cowboy felt no fear. Instead, he felt a deep curiosity, and perhaps even a sense of responsibility. This was not merely a contest for fame or reward. This was about understanding, about protecting those who could not protect themselves, and about standing for what was right. That evening the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the plains. The cowboy sat near the riverbank, watching the reflection of light dance on the water. He thought about the challenge ahead, about the life of the Apache leader's wife, and about the choices that had led to this moment. She had been quiet and reserved in the stories he heard, respected by her people, wise beyond her years, and strong in her own way. She was not an object or a prize. She was a person with hopes and dreams, fears and courage. The cowboy understood that anyone who stepped forward to face this challenge must do so with more than strength. They must act with honor, with care, and with understanding. That night, a campfire burned near the edge of town. The cowboy tended to his horse and prepared for the journey ahead. The wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the distant sounds of the Apache camp. He could hear the laughter of warriors, the low murmur of planning, and the occasional call of an animal from the forest beyond. It was peaceful in its own way, but the cowboy knew the peace was fragile. By morning everything could change. The challenge would begin, and lives would be tested in ways that words could not fully capture. As he lay under the stars, he remembered the hardships he had faced in his own life, the harsh winters, the lonely trails, the towns he had seen torn apart by conflict. He had learned that strength alone was not enough. Courage was not measured by the force of one's arm, but by the depth of one's heart, by the willingness to act with integrity, and by the ability to protect those who could not protect themselves. He knew that the path ahead would be difficult, filled with danger and uncertainty. But he also knew that stepping forward was the only way to honor the lives involved, to ensure that the challenge did not become a tragedy. At dawn, the cowboy mounted his horse once more. The sky was painted in soft gold, and the plains stretched endlessly before him. He rode toward the Apache camp, feeling the weight of every decision he had made. Every mile brought him closer to the leader, closer to the test, and closer to the moment that would define not just his life, but the lives of many others. The townspeople watched from a distance, holding their breath as the lone figure approached. Some whispered prayers, some crossed themselves, and some simply hoped that the courage in one man could bring honor, justice, and understanding to a challenge unlike any other. The Apache leader waited at the center of the camp, surrounded by his warriors. His stance was strong, his gaze steady, and his presence commanding. The cowboy rode forward, stopping a respectful distance away. There was no hurry, no recklessness, only a quiet, steady determination. He tipped his hat slightly, a gesture of respect that spoke more than words ever could. The leader's eyes met his, and in that moment, both men recognized the weight of what was about to unfold. This was not a contest of anger or pride alone. It was a test of spirit, of honor, and of the choices that define who a person truly is. The first part of the story ends here, setting the stage for the challenge that will unfold. The plains are quiet now, but soon they will echo with action, courage, and the difficult decisions that will shape the lives of everyone involved. The cowboy is ready not for fame or reward, but for the responsibility that comes with standing for what is right. And the Apache leader waits, proud and strong, unaware that this encounter may change everything he believes about strength, honor, and love. The morning air was crisp and filled with the sounds of the plains waking up. Birds called from the trees, and the wind rustled through the tall grass. The cowboy rode slowly toward the Apache camp, his horse steady and sure-footed on the rocky path. Every step brought him closer to the leader, to the challenge, and to a world he had only seen from a distance until now. He felt the weight of what lay ahead. This was not a simple contest of strength. It was a test of courage, honor, and respect. The Apache leader stood tall in the center of his camp, surrounded by his warriors. His presence was commanding, his eyes sharp, and his posture proud. He had built his reputation over many years, defending his people, surviving harsh lands, and leading with skill and precision. To him, the challenge he had issued was more than words. It was a measure of life itself. He believed that those who were strong and brave should rise to the top, and he expected anyone who stepped forward to understand the gravity of his declaration. As the cowboy approached, he noticed the quiet strength of the leader's wife. She was standing a few steps behind him, her eyes calm but alert, watching every move. There was a sense of wisdom in her gaze, a depth that told stories of life lived with care and understanding. She was not afraid, but she carried the weight of her people's expectations and the traditions of the land. The cowboy recognized that she was not a prize to be won. She was a person with her own thoughts, feelings, and strength. The cowboy dismounted and approached on foot, keeping a respectful distance. His boots made soft sounds on the rocky ground, and the morning sunlight glinted off his worn hat and leather coat. He did not rush did not boast, and did not make threats. He stood quietly, observing the camp, the people, and the land around them. There was a moment of silence, as if the plains themselves were holding their breath. "Who are you?" one of the warriors asked, stepping forward. His voice was firm but not unkind. He carried the weight of duty, protecting the leader and the honor of the challenge. "I am a traveler," the cowboy replied calmly. "I ride where I am needed, and I do what I must to help those who cannot help themselves." His eyes met the warrior's, steady and unwavering. There was honesty in his tone, and a quiet confidence that came not from pride, but from experience. The warrior studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slightly and stepped back, signaling to the others that the cowboy was not a threat to be dismissed lightly. Word passed quickly through the camp that a stranger had arrived, willing to face the challenge. The Apache leader's eyes narrowed, studying the cowboy with interest. He had faced many men in his life, some strong, some clever, some reckless. But this one seemed different. There was no arrogance, no desire for glory, only a quiet strength and an understanding that the test ahead was not to be taken lightly. The cowboy spent the morning walking through the camp, observing the routines of the people. He saw warriors practicing their skills, learning the ways of the land, and preparing for the trials ahead. He saw children playing, laughing despite the tension that lingered in the air. And he saw the leader's wife moving among the people with grace, her presence calm and reassuring. She offered words of encouragement, helped those in need, and listened with care. The cowboy realized that the challenge was not just about strength, but about character, compassion, and the choices one makes under pressure. By midday, the cowboy had learned more about the land and the people than many who had lived there for years. He understood the respect they held for each other, the traditions they followed, and the careful balance of pride and humility that guided their lives. He also understood that the challenge issued by the Apache leader was more than a test of arms. It was a reflection of the values they held dear. Strength alone would not be enough. Courage, wisdom, and a willingness to protect others were equally important. The cowboy spent the afternoon preparing himself for what was to come. He tended to his horse, checked his supplies, and walked along the river that ran near the camp. The water was clear and cold, rushing over smooth stones, and he felt a sense of calm as he listened to its flow. He thought about the trials ahead, the races, the tests of skill, and the challenges that would push both him and the leader to their limits. He also thought about the leader's wife, not as a prize, but as a person who deserved respect, choice, and safety. Every step he planned, every decision he considered, was guided by this understanding. As the sun began to lower, casting long shadows across the plains, the cowboy and the Apache leader met for the first time alone. They stood facing each other, neither speaking at first. The wind carried the faint sound of children laughing and the soft rustle of leaves. The cowboy studied the leader, noting the years of experience etched into his face, the strength in his posture, and the pride in his eyes. The leader studied the cowboy, noting the calmness in his gaze, the quiet confidence in his movements, and the respect in his demeanor. Finally, the leader spoke. "You have come here willingly," he said. "Many have heard my words, but few have understood them. Tell me, why do you step forward?" The cowboy's voice was calm and steady. "Because strength is not only measured in fighting, it is measured in protecting those who cannot protect themselves, in making choices with care, and in respecting the lives of others. I do not come for glory, nor for reward. I come because this is the right thing to do." The leader's eyes narrowed, studying him closely. He could see that this man was not like the others he had faced. He was not reckless, not boastful, not careless. He was steady, strong in both body and heart, and he understood that the challenge ahead was about more than victory. There was something in the cowboy's words that touched the leader in a way he had not expected. The leader's wife watched from a distance, her eyes thoughtful. She had seen many men come and go, some strong, some clever, some foolish. But there was something different about this one. He carried himself with respect. He understood the value of life, and he seemed to see her not as a prize, but as a person. She felt a sense of hope that had not been present in the camp for many years. As the afternoon passed, the cowboy and the leader discussed the rules of the challenge. It would not be a simple fight. There would be tests of skill, endurance, and wisdom. There would be races across the plains, trials of strength, and challenges that required careful thinking and quick decisions. The cowboy listened closely, understanding each detail, and prepared himself for the journey ahead. When evening came, the camp gathered around a large fire. The flames danced and flickered, casting warm light on the faces of those present. The cowboy sat quietly, observing the people, the land, and the balance of power and respect that held the community together. He could see the fear, the hope, and the curiosity in their eyes. He understood that his actions in the coming days would not only affect himself but also the lives of many others. That night, under a sky filled with stars, the cowboy thought about the meaning of strength and courage. He remembered the hardships he had faced in his life, the long trails, the harsh winters, the lonely nights. He had learned that courage was not only in facing danger, but in acting with care, respect, and understanding. He knew that the challenges ahead would test him in ways he could not yet imagine, and that the choices he made would have lasting consequences. The first night passed quietly. The cowboy rested under the open sky, listening to the sounds of the camp and the plains beyond. He felt a sense of calm and readiness, knowing that tomorrow would bring the true beginning of the challenge. He had taken the first step, not in haste, not in anger, but with respect for the land, the people, and the responsibility he had chosen to accept. As dawn approached, the cowboy prepared for the first trial. The plains stretched endlessly before him, golden and quiet in the early light. He mounted his horse, feeling the steady rhythm of the animal beneath him, and took a deep breath. He was ready, not for glory, not for reward, but for the test of courage, honor, and heart that lay ahead. And as he rode toward the camp, the Apache leader watched him closely, knowing that this was the beginning of something that would change them all. The morning sun painted the plains in warm golden light, and the air smelled of dry grass and earth. The cowboy rode slowly through the camp, his horse steady beneath him, alert to every sound and movement. Today was the first real test, the moment when his skills, courage, and understanding would be measured. The Apache leader stood in the center of the camp, surrounded by his warriors, his eyes sharp and observant. He had faced many challenges before, but this one carried a weight he had not fully expected. The challenge was simple to explain, yet difficult to master. It would not be won by brute strength alone. The first test involved a long ride across the plains, carrying supplies for the community. The rider would need endurance, focus, and a steady hand. It was not only a race against distance but also a test of care, as the supplies were fragile, meant for the tribe's needs. The cowboy understood immediately that this was a test of responsibility as much as of skill. He adjusted his hat, tightened the straps on his horse's saddle, and prepared to begin. The Apache leader watched carefully as the cowboy mounted his horse. He noticed the calm confidence in the man's eyes, the careful way he handled his mount, and the quiet determination in his posture. This was not a man seeking glory or recognition. This was a man ready to act with purpose and care, aware that his actions would affect many lives. The leader could feel a mixture of respect and curiosity growing within him. He had expected competitors to be reckless, eager to show strength, but this one was different. The race began with a signal from the leader. Warriors and spectators alike held their breath as the cowboy guided his horse through rocky paths, tall grasses, and uneven ground. He kept his movements precise, his focus unwavering, ensuring that the supplies he carried remained safe. Along the way, he encountered small obstacles, a fallen tree, a shallow stream, and rough terrain. But he handled each challenge with patience and skill. He helped his horse over difficult patches, balanced the supplies carefully, and maintained a steady pace that showed both strength and care. As he rode, he saw other competitors struggling. Some were strong, but they rushed without thought, dropping or damaging the supplies. Others were clever but lacked the endurance to complete the journey without error. The cowboy's approach was different. He moved with purpose, with awareness of both his surroundings and the responsibility he bore. Every step, every decision, reflected his understanding that strength alone was not enough to succeed. Meanwhile, the Apache leader followed on foot and on horseback, observing every movement. He watched the cowboy navigate the plains, handle the horse, and protect the supplies. He could see that the man was not only skilled but also thoughtful, demonstrating qualities that the leader valued deeply: patience, care, and respect for life. This was a test he had designed to measure strength, but the cowboy was showing him something more, a quiet power that came from understanding, not pride. The leader's wife watched as well, her eyes calm and observant. She had seen many men attempt challenges, and most failed to understand the importance of responsibility. But the cowboy moved with care, making choices that showed respect for both the land and the people. She felt a quiet hope, realizing that perhaps this challenge could be met with honor rather than conflict. Her presence added weight to the trial, reminding the cowboy that the challenge was not only physical but also moral. As the race continued, the cowboy encountered a fallen rider who had struggled with the terrain. Without hesitation, he guided his horse to help the man to safety, ensuring that he was unharmed before continuing. The Apache leader noticed this, his eyes widening with a mixture of surprise and respect. The cowboy was not focused solely on winning. He understood that true strength included helping others, protecting those in need, and making the right choice even when it was difficult. The plains stretched endlessly, sun climbing higher in the sky, wind picking up and carrying the scent of sagebrush. The cowboy pushed forward with steady determination, balancing speed with care. He maneuvered through narrow paths, navigated rocky inclines, and crossed streams with precision. Every movement showed that he was not only skilled but also thoughtful, aware of the consequences of his actions. He could feel the weight of responsibility in each step, the eyes of the tribe upon him, and the importance of honor guiding his choices. When he finally reached the end of the first test, the supplies were intact, and he dismounted smoothly, breathing steadily but alert. The Apache leader approached, nodding in approval. "You have done well," he said. "You have strength, yes, but more importantly, you have understanding. Many would rush and fail. You have succeeded because you see beyond yourself." The cowboy inclined his head respectfully, not boasting, not claiming victory. He understood that this was only the beginning, and that more challenges awaited. The next test was a demonstration of skill and agility. Competitors were required to navigate an obstacle course designed to test balance, precision, and mental focus. Horses had to leap over fallen logs, cross narrow beams, and maneuver around sharp turns. The cowboy studied the course carefully, observing each obstacle and planning his approach. He did not rush. He moved with patience, guiding his horse with calm authority, ensuring that every jump, every turn, and every balance point was executed safely and efficiently. The leader's warriors watched with interest. They had trained many riders and fighters, but few had approached the challenge with the same careful attention. The cowboy's movements were smooth, deliberate, and effective. He understood that skill was not only in execution but also in anticipation, reading the land, the horse, and the obstacles before acting. His choices reflected both experience and wisdom, qualities that the Apache leader valued above mere strength. During the course, the cowboy noticed a young apprentice struggling with one of the obstacles. Without hesitation, he slowed his horse and offered guidance, showing the apprentice how to balance and approach the challenge safely. The leader saw this and felt a growing respect for the man. The cowboy was not only capable but also compassionate, willing to help others even when it might cost him time or advantage. This was a rare quality, one that set him apart from others who had attempted the trials. By the end of the obstacle course, the cowboy had completed every challenge with precision and care. He dismounted, steady and composed, and looked toward the leader. "It is not just strength that matters," he said quietly. "It is understanding, patience, and respect. That is what allows us to succeed without harming others." The leader nodded, absorbing the truth in the words. He had designed the challenge to test skill and courage, but the cowboy had shown him that true strength also included wisdom and compassion. The final test of the day involved endurance and bravery. Competitors were required to traverse a long stretch of rugged land, carrying water and supplies to a remote section of the camp. The path was steep and rocky, with hidden obstacles and potential dangers. The cowboy prepared himself, checking his horse and supplies, and began the journey with steady focus. He moved with purpose, aware of every step, every choice, and every potential risk. Along the way, he encountered small challenges: rocks that threatened to unbalance the horse, sudden drops in the terrain, and narrow paths along the riverbank. He navigated each obstacle carefully, never rushing, always aware of the importance of safety and responsibility. The leader's wife watched from the camp, her eyes following his progress. She saw not only skill but also care, and she felt a growing sense of hope that the challenge could be met with honor rather than recklessness. By the time the cowboy reached the end of the endurance trial, the sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the plains. He had completed every task with care, patience, and respect. The leader approached, his expression thoughtful and serious.
"You have done well today," he said. "You have proven that strength is not only in the arm but in the heart.
You have shown courage, skill, and wisdom. Few have ever approached my challenge in this way." The cowboy nodded, humble but alert. He understood that today was only the beginning. More challenges awaited, tests that would not only measure his strength but also the choices he made under pressure. He knew that every action mattered, and that the way he treated others would continue to define him in the eyes of the tribe and the leader's wife. As the camp settled for the evening, the cowboy tended to his horse and prepared for the night. The fire burned brightly, casting warm light on the faces of the people gathered around. Children played quietly, warriors shared stories, and the leader's wife moved among them, offering comfort and encouragement. The cowboy watched, feeling a deep respect for the balance of the community, the importance of honor, and the lessons he had learned through the trials of the day. Under the stars, he reflected on the events. Strength alone was not enough. Courage alone was not enough. It was the combination of skill, patience, care, and understanding that defined true power. He knew that the challenges ahead would test him in new ways, but he felt ready. He had learned not only about the land and the people, but also about himself, about the responsibility that came with action, and the importance of acting with honor. The first day of the trials ended with quiet anticipation. The plains were calm, but the air was alive with the energy of what was to come. The cowboy rested under the open sky, knowing that the challenges ahead would demand even more of him. And as the firelight flickered across the camp, he felt a sense of purpose and resolve, ready to face whatever trials awaited, not for glory, but for honor. The morning dawned gray and heavy, and the wind carried the scent of rain across the plains. Clouds had gathered overnight, dark and brooding, rolling across the horizon in thick, slow-moving masses. The Apache camp was quiet but alert. The warriors moved about carefully, securing their tents, checking their supplies, and preparing for whatever the day might bring. There was a sense of tension in the air, as if the land itself knew that a trial unlike any before was approaching. The cowboy rose early, tending to his horse and gathering what he needed for the day. He had slept little, knowing that the next challenge would test not only his strength, but his judgment and courage. Today's trial would push him and the Apache leader to their limits, but he welcomed it. The cowboy understood that true strength was revealed not when all was calm and easy, but when danger appeared and decisions had to be made quickly. The leader called the warriors together, explaining the trial for the day. It would be a test of endurance, courage, and cooperation. The path lay across rocky hills, dense brush, and the winding river. The competitors would carry essential supplies for the tribe while navigating the rough terrain. They would face natural obstacles, and no one could predict what might happen along the way. The cowboy listened carefully, noting every detail, preparing not only to complete the trial, but also to help anyone who might be in danger. He mounted his horse, feeling the steady rhythm beneath him. The Apache leader did the same, his eyes scanning the path ahead. The other warriors watched silently, knowing that the two men represented the heart of the challenge. The cowboy understood that this trial was different from the others. It was no longer just a test of speed, skill, or balance. It was a test of spirit, of choices made under pressure, and of courage when the unexpected struck. As they rode out across the plains, the first drops of rain began to fall, light at first but steadily growing stronger. The wind picked up, tugging at their coats and hats, bending the tall grass as it passed. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a low, rolling warning of the storm ahead. The cowboy and the Apache leader continued forward, moving carefully over the rocky ground. Every step mattered, for a miscalculation could injure the horse, damage the supplies, or place themselves or others in danger. Halfway along the path, the storm hit in full force. Rain poured down, soaking clothes and blurring vision. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the loud crash of thunder made the ground seem to tremble. Trees bent and groaned under the wind, and the river swelled with a sudden rush of water. The path became treacherous, slick with mud and fallen leaves. Even the most experienced riders had to be cautious. The cowboy adjusted his grip on the reins, leaning carefully with each step of the horse, guiding it over rocks and through shallow gullies. Suddenly, a young warrior slipped on the muddy bank of the river, losing his balance and threatening to fall into the rushing water. Without hesitation, the cowboy urged his horse forward and reached out, grabbing the man and pulling him to safety. The Apache leader watched closely, seeing the cowboy put himself at risk to protect someone else. It was a moment that defined the man, not through speed or strength, but through courage and care. The storm raged on, and the river overflowed, washing away a small bridge they had to cross. The cowboy studied the gap carefully. He could see that the path was dangerous but not impossible. He guided his horse along a narrow, rocky ledge, stepping slowly and carefully to ensure both the animal and the supplies remained safe. The Apache leader followed, impressed by the cowboy's precision and courage. The other warriors waited, realizing that the trial was no longer a simple contest. It was a test of character, resourcefulness, and bravery under pressure. As they continued, another obstacle appeared. A fallen tree blocked the path, heavy and jagged, stretching across the trail. The cowboy did not rush. He dismounted, assessing the situation. With care, he guided his horse around the tree, ensuring that neither the animal nor the supplies were harmed. He then helped the other warriors navigate the obstacle, showing patience and leadership. The Apache leader noticed this, and for the first time he began to question his own assumptions about strength and victory. Perhaps there was more to winning than defeating others in battle. The storm worsened, and the sky darkened further. The cowboy and the leader had to make a quick decision when lightning struck dangerously close to the path ahead. A fire had started in the dry grass, cutting off part of the route. The cowboy acted immediately, using blankets and water from their supplies to control the flames, guiding the others safely around the danger. The leader's eyes widened in surprise and respect. This was not a man focused on personal glory. He was focused on the safety of everyone around him. By late afternoon, the storm began to ease, leaving behind a wet, glistening landscape. Puddles reflected the gray sky, and the mud made every step uncertain. Yet the cowboy continued steadily, leading the group to the edge of the river where the supplies needed to be delivered. He dismounted, handing the essential items to the tribe members who waited at the final point. Every item had been preserved, every life kept safe, and the cowboy's calm and steady leadership had guided them through one of the most dangerous parts of the trial. The Apache leader approached, his expression thoughtful and serious. He studied the cowboy, seeing in him qualities he had not expected. "You have done more than survive this trial," he said. "You have protected others, made difficult choices, and shown courage when danger struck. Many would have failed, but you have succeeded in a way that is greater than strength alone." The cowboy nodded humbly. He did not boast. He understood that today was a lesson, not a victory. The leader's words confirmed that the path of care, courage, and honor was recognized and respected. The leader's wife came forward, her eyes thoughtful and calm. She had watched the cowboy closely throughout the storm, noting every decision, every act of bravery, and every moment of care. She saw a man who understood the true meaning of strength, not in dominance or pride, but in protection, respect, and integrity. She smiled faintly, feeling a sense of hope for the first time in a long while. Perhaps the challenge could end not with harm or conflict, but with understanding and respect. As the day drew to a close, the cowboy and the Apache leader returned to the camp, weary but unbroken. The storm had tested their limits, but it also revealed truths that words alone could not express. The leader realized that true strength could take many forms, and that sometimes the bravest act was not to fight for pride, but to act with wisdom, care, and courage when lives were at stake. The camp settled for the evening, tending to the needs of the people and repairing minor damages caused by the storm. Fires burned brightly, casting warm light across the wet ground, and children and adults alike gathered to share stories and laughter despite the hardships they had faced. The cowboy tended to his horse, ensuring it was dry, fed, and calm. He reflected on the events of the day, feeling a deep sense of responsibility and purpose. Under the night sky, filled with stars shining through clearing clouds, the cowboy thought about the lessons of the storm. Strength alone was never enough. True courage was shown when protecting others, making careful choices, and acting with integrity even in the face of danger. He understood that the trials ahead would be no easier, but he felt ready. He had proven that it was possible to succeed without sacrificing care, respect, or humanity. The Apache leader and his wife sat nearby, speaking quietly. The leader's expression was thoughtful, his eyes reflecting a new understanding. He had seen the cowboy's heart as clearly as his skill, and he realized that the original challenge, measured in pride and victory, was only part of the story. True honor came from protecting those who could not protect themselves, and making choices that reflected wisdom and compassion. The cowboy rested that night under the open sky, the sounds of the camp and the river nearby providing a calm backdrop. He felt a sense of accomplishment, not from winning, but from acting with honor and courage. He knew that the final trials awaited, and that his choices would continue to shape the outcomes for everyone involved. Yet he also knew that the lessons of the storm, the importance of care, courage, and wisdom, would guide him through whatever came next. The plains were quiet now, the storm past but leaving the land glistening and alive. The cowboy felt the weight of the responsibility he had accepted, and he embraced it fully. He was not only riding for himself but for the safety, honor, and respect of all those around him. And as he looked at the Apache leader and his wife, he knew that the final chapter of this challenge would be defined not by strength alone, but by the choices they made together in the face of danger, the trust they built, and the respect they shared. The sun rose slowly over the plains, casting a soft golden glow across the camp. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of damp earth and the faint aroma of the fires burning from the night before. The storm had passed, leaving the land glistening, alive, and quiet. The cowboy mounted his horse, his mind calm but alert. Today would not be about tests, obstacles, or trials. Today was about understanding, decisions, and the future. The Apache leader stood near the center of the camp, his eyes thoughtful, watching the cowboy with a new sense of respect. The leader's wife moved among the tribe, speaking with calm authority, ensuring everyone was safe and tended to after the storm. The cowboy noticed the way the people listened to her, how her presence brought assurance and guidance. She was strong, wise, and compassionate, not a prize to be won, but a pillar of the community. The cowboy understood this, and he felt a deep sense of purpose. Every step he had taken, every decision he had made, had led to this moment of understanding. The Apache leader approached him, walking slowly and deliberately. His face was serious, but his eyes reflected a change, a new respect that had grown through the trials of the past days. "You have faced every challenge I have given, not with pride or arrogance, but with courage, care, and wisdom," he said. "You have proven something that even I did not fully understand. Strength is not only measured by power, skill, or victory. It is measured by respect, honor, and the choices we make when others depend on us." The cowboy nodded, acknowledging the truth in the leader's words. He had not come seeking glory, reward, or recognition. He had come because it was the right thing to do, for the people, for the tribe, and for those who could not protect themselves. The Apache leader's recognition did not change this. It was not a prize. It was understanding. The leader's wife approached as well. Her eyes met the cowboy's, calm and steady. She spoke quietly, her voice carrying warmth and strength. "You have shown care and courage," she said. "Not many would risk so much for others. Not many would act with such wisdom in the face of danger. You have my respect, as well as that of the tribe." The cowboy bowed his head slightly, humbled by her words. He had never sought acknowledgment, yet he felt a deep satisfaction knowing that his actions had earned respect through honesty, bravery, and care. The leader paused for a moment, looking at his wife, then at the cowboy. "I said long ago that my wife would be given to whoever could defeat me. But I see now that those words were made in pride, without understanding. No person should ever be treated as a prize, and no challenge should put lives at risk for the sake of honor alone. Today you have shown what it means to be truly strong. It is not in conquering others, but in protecting, respecting, and understanding them." The cowboy listened carefully, aware that the moment was pivotal. The trials had not only tested him, they had tested the leader, the tribe, and the very meaning of strength and courage. The words the leader spoke were not simply an apology or a concession. They were a transformation.
The old way of measuring honor through dominance and pride was replaced by a new understanding of respect, compassion, and choice.
The leader's wife stepped forward, standing tall and confident. "I am grateful that this challenge has ended in a way that honors all of us," she said. "I am free to choose my own path, to live with those I respect and trust, and to guide the tribe as I have learned. The challenge no longer defines me. Choice does, and understanding does." The cowboy felt a quiet sense of relief. He had never sought to claim anything from the challenge. He had stepped forward not for reward, but for responsibility and honor. Now, seeing the leader, the tribe, and the woman all safe and respected, he knew that his purpose had been fulfilled. The trials had tested his skill, courage, and care, but the real victory was the understanding and respect that had grown through them. The Apache leader and the cowboy walked together briefly, side by side, speaking quietly about the events of the past days. They shared mutual respect, recognizing the lessons each had learned from the trials. The cowboy spoke of the importance of protecting others, of acting with patience, and of valuing the choices of every person. The leader acknowledged that true strength was more than physical power. It was wisdom, courage, and integrity in the face of danger. As the day moved toward afternoon, the cowboy prepared to leave the camp. He had fulfilled his purpose, and his journey would continue. The tribe gathered to see him off, the leader's wife among them. There were smiles, nods, and quiet gestures of gratitude. No one spoke of prizes or victory in the old sense. Instead, they acknowledged courage, respect, and understanding, the qualities that had truly been tested. The cowboy mounted his horse, feeling the steady strength of the animal beneath him. He looked at the Apache leader, the tribe, and the woman who had been at the center of the challenge. "I leave now," he said quietly. "Not because I wish to abandon anything, but because my journey continues. May your lives be guided by wisdom, courage, and care, as they have been shown to me in this challenge." The leader nodded, his expression solemn yet respectful. "Go with honor," he said. "You have taught us as much as you have learned. The tribe will remember your actions, not as a contest, but as an example of true strength and courage." The cowboy turned his horse toward the open plains, the sun casting long shadows behind him. He rode slowly, taking in the beauty of the land, the calm after the storm, and the knowledge that his actions had made a difference. The wind carried the scent of grass and earth, and the distant mountains rose in quiet majesty. He did not look back often, but he felt the presence of the tribe and the lessons of the challenge with him in every step. As he rode, he thought about the meaning of the trials, the storm, and the choices that had defined the past days. Strength was not only in the body, but in the heart. Courage was not only in facing danger, but in making decisions that protect and respect others. Wisdom was not only in knowledge, but in understanding when to act, how to act, and why to act. The cowboy knew that these lessons would guide him in every challenge yet to come. The tribe returned to their daily lives, but the memory of the cowboy and the trials remained. The leader and his wife spoke with their people, sharing the lessons of respect, courage, and understanding. The camp was filled with a new sense of calm, confidence, and unity. The trials had tested them all, but they had emerged wiser, stronger in spirit, and ready to face the future together. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the cowboy reached the edge of the plains, where the land opened into distant hills and valleys. He paused for a moment, taking in the beauty of the world around him. The journey ahead was unknown, but he felt ready. Every trial, every challenge, and every choice had prepared him for the road beyond. With one last glance at the land behind him, he urged his horse forward, riding toward new adventures, new trials, and new opportunities to act with courage, care, and wisdom. The Apache leader and his wife watched from the camp, standing together in the quiet of the evening. They had learned that true strength was measured not by victories over others, but by the choices that protect, respect, and uplift those around them. The cowboy's actions had changed the meaning of the challenge, leaving a lasting mark on the tribe and on the land. His departure was not an end, but a continuation of the lessons he had taught and the courage he had shown. The plains stretched endlessly ahead, golden in the light of the setting sun. The cowboy rode steadily, the rhythm of his horse a constant reminder of the journey, the challenges, and the lessons learned. He was not seeking reward or recognition. He was guided by purpose, integrity, and understanding. A traveler shaped by trials, a man defined by honor, and a heart committed to courage and care. Night fell, stars appearing one by one across the vast sky. The cowboy made camp beneath a large oak tree, preparing for the night. He tended to his horse, laid out his simple supplies, and gazed at the stars above. The world was quiet, peaceful, and alive. He reflected on the journey, the trials, the storm, and the lessons learned. The challenge had ended, but the wisdom gained would remain with him forever. With the dawn of a new day, he would continue riding, moving across the plains, mountains, and valleys. But the lessons of the Apache leader, his wife, and the tribe would remain in his heart. Strength, courage, and wisdom were not measured in victories or prizes, but in choices made with care, respect, and understanding. The cowboy knew this truth, and it would guide him in every step, every decision, and every adventure yet to come. And so, the story ended not with conflict or conquest, but with understanding, respect, and honor. The Apache leader's challenge had transformed into a lesson for all. Strength lies not only in the arm but in the heart. Courage is shown in protection and care, and wisdom is measured in the choices we make when others depend on us. The cowboy rode onward, leaving behind a tribe stronger in spirit, a woman free in choice, and a story that would be told for generations as a lesson in true courage and human goodness.